Hey guys, it's Bella. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. And in today's video, I'm going to be doing kind of a postpartum video, kind of the fourth trimester, just explaining what I experienced, what I didn't know, what I learned, and yeah, that's pretty much it. My last video was a birth story, so I figured this would be a good kind of follow-up video to my last one. So yeah. Let's get into it. So first off, I was 19 when I had my baby. I just recently turned 20. He's only about 4.5, almost 5 months old. So postpartum was definitely difficult for me. I was already previously struggling with mental health issues, so that also didn't make it, well, it probably did make it more difficult, but I didn't notice a drastic difference. Also, side note, the 2 months into my pregnancy, I had to come off every single one of my medications, and I was on 4 of those medications. I was on Effexor, which is called venlafaxine, Divalproex, sertraline, and quetiapine. Sertraline and quetiapine were considered to be a little bit safer for pregnancy, but they still advised me to go off everything I could. The venlafaxine, Effexor, had to be stopped immediately due to just risk for the baby. So I was in a 8-week DBT prenatal emotion regulation, not dropping group, it was a group. So I would be on Zoom for an hour a week, and I would have homework. Actually, those were 2 hours, those were really long groups. So yeah, that kind of helped me manage during pregnancy, and then postpartum I did more DBT follow-up to kind of help manage my emotions. Anyways, so I'm just gonna start with immediately after I had Brantley. So pretty much immediately after he was born, my whole body was incredibly sore, which was to be expected, but I underestimated the amount of back pain I would have. I had previously dealt with back pain before. Sorry, someone's trying to turn to the driveway, and I don't know who they are. I'm assuming they're for the downstairs tenants. I've experienced back pain before, but never to that extent. It was incredibly difficult to move and to lay down, but I was still able to be up and walking pretty much immediately after I had Brantley. I know for C-section people, I had him vaginally, but I know if you have a C-section, your incision has to heal, and the healing process takes a lot longer. You might not be up and moving right away, and you might still have a catheter. So I was up and moving right away. I was also incredibly tired because towards the end of pregnancy, I got no sleep whatsoever. And I was in like early labor or preterm labor for like 2 days. So I was experiencing contractions or Rex and Hicks throughout a 2-day period, so I was just recovering from everything I had just experienced. My appetite was great. Basically, it was a lot of sitting in the hospital bed, and one thing I did not know about newborns is they eat every 2 hours around the clock. And they might cluster feed. So for people who are breastfeeding or formula feeding, cluster feeding is, they might want to feed every 20 minutes, they might want to feed for 45 minutes, they might just be constantly feeding for hours on end, and it is emotionally and physically draining. So one way I suggest surviving cluster feeding, have snacks nearby, have water nearby, because if you're breastfeeding, you will become incredibly dehydrated. You will always be hungry while you're breastfeeding. Also, another quick tip, because I had so many back problems, I did not want to breastfeed sitting up and like hunching over. So I later discovered that I could lay down sideways on the couch and have my baby laying down, and I would not have to touch him. I had my both hands free, and I would be able to almost nap when I'm breastfeeding him, so that was great. Also, if you are breastfeeding, it was incredibly painful for me at the start. I had lanolin cream for my nipples. It didn't help. It was so painful. And I had never had a baby before, so I was holding him quite a lot with my wrists like this, and my wrists became so stiff I could not move them. So that was a big adjustment to my body, just learning how to properly pick up and hold my baby while supporting his head. It was the supporting his head because I tried to nurse him like this initially, and it just made my arms really sore. So that was difficult. Another thing, showering. So I waited about 8 or 10 hours after I gave birth to first take a shower, and I probably took the quickest shower in that hospital because it was just not the nicest place to shower. But I had no issue showering, other than the fact that I was like very cautious to kind of stay away from my vagina. Also another thing, postpartum, like the first few days, it will stink incredibly badly. And if you are breastfeeding or nursing, your body odor will become a lot more stronger. Even still, I'm 4 or 5 months postpartum, my armpits still smell worse than they normally did. Are you puking over there? So that is another thing to kind of be prepared for. You will smell different, and noticeably worse. Yeah, that I didn't know. Also, using the washroom. So I had an epidural. After it essentially wore off, they were monitoring my urine output. It was so painful to urinate, even with squirting the peri bottle on to me as I peed. What I recommend if you're having trouble urinating postpartum, take a sitz bath. So essentially fill the water up just enough to where it's like to your belly button, and then try to pee while you're in the bath. It may sound disgusting, but if it is so painful that you cannot pee or you're afraid to pee, do that. It will help. Or try to pee standing up in the shower so it falls down instead of running down underneath you. I also had a perineal tear, so I had stitches that were healing. You didn't have to do anything for the stitches. They were dissolvable by themselves. They were internal stitches. So yeah, also another great thing if you're having pain or just general discomfort after giving birth, which you probably will, if you give birth vaginally, take a pad, open it up, dump some witch hazel on it, or you can use aloe vera also, but witch hazel is what I just use witch hazel. Then fold it back up, stick it in the freezer, and it acts like an ice pack, and it is incredibly helpful and very soothing. So that helped quite a bit. Another thing, you will be very swollen after you give birth. For me, it was probably swollen for 2 or 3 weeks after. Also with urinating, the pain didn't go away until a week later, so it was painful to urinate for an entire week after. Which sounds like nothing now, but it was awful. And even though I was drinking as much water as I could, it still stung like hell. What's up, Nugget? I'm gonna go grab him. He's banging on the keyboard that's not plugged in. Also postpartum with your baby. So in the hospital I was in, I live in Canada, so I did not have to worry about any fees or like a crazy hospital bill, so I was very thankful for that. They gave me food when I was there. They don't provide diapers in where I live. I know some hospitals provide all that stuff. They only provide like a little bit of formula if you choose to formula feed. So we brought our own diapers. Babies only soil about one diaper every like 8 hours. So we didn't even change him, and when they're first born, it's like black tar and it's very sticky. The nurses changed him for us. Also, he did not wear any clothes in the hospital, so he was just in a diaper like he is now, and he was swaddled up in the hospital blankets the whole time. He didn't wear any outfits until we took him home. So that was fun. I don't know why people bring a shit ton of baby clothes. They end up naked most of the time. Also, another thing to expect in the hospital, a lot of skin to skin with your baby. So essentially with the gown, I was pretty much topless most of the time because I was breastfeeding. And they would just have you cuddle him on your chest, and he would relax and just lay there very nicely, but he's squirmy wormy now. So lots of skin to skin. Trying to think, oh, something else. My stomach in abdomen the entire pregnancy was rock solid. It felt so hard, and postpartum it is incredibly squishy. And another thing, do not expect your stomach to go flat postpartum. Expect it to take 2 to 3 months for your stomach to go back down. Sometimes it takes even longer. Yeah, it just takes a while for everything to contract back down. Don't expect it to happen right away. Don't be discouraged if it takes longer. Just expect it to take a while to get things back to normal. I remember specifically 2 weeks postpartum, I took a picture. I might insert it here if I figure out how, of how my body looked compared to pregnancy, and it had already looked so much better. I had dropped a bunch of weight. Some people don't lose the weight as easily, but nursing helps you to lose weight. I wasn't aiming to lose weight, it just happened naturally for me. So yeah, don't expect to be super skinny after birth. Your tummy might still stick out quite a bit. I didn't notice any stretch marks until postpartum. That's when they really darkened around just my hips, and I didn't have any on my stomach, I just had them on my hips. But all that darkened postpartum. Another thing is hormone changes. So postpartum, you will be incredibly hormonal. It's also difficult emotionally, feeding your baby every 2 hours around the clock, so you'll be sleep deprived, and you will probably cry a lot. I definitely did. The way we worked it out was once my milk came in, I pumped, and once I had enough milk to put in bottles, my boyfriend bottle fed him at night so I could get a few hours of uninterrupted sleep. So that really helped my emotional health. If you have a partner who's on nights already, if you can just have them take over the night feeding and care, it'll make your life a lot easier postpartum. Also, another thing we did was accept help from our family members. Even if it was something as simple as calling someone up to say, hey, can you just take him for a walk so I can have 40 minutes to take a nap? That was incredibly helpful. Trying to think, there's so much that happens postpartum that people don't talk about. The emotional changes, the physical changes, the hormonal changes, the changes in lifestyle. It's so much to cover, and I don't have anything written down, so it's hard to kind of think on the spot about everything that happens. Sorry, I'm just watching people walk outside. He's quite interested in the keyboard here. Yeah. Oh, another thing. Postpartum, I was incredibly scared to hold him because he felt so fragile to me. He was 6 pounds, 8 ounces. He was relatively small. And he was incredibly long, so he was pretty skinny. I was very scared to hold him, and you most likely will not break your baby if you're careful. Yeah, another thing, they have a soft spot on the tops of their heads when they're born, so between here and here, you're not supposed to touch it because their skull is not fully fused together. That's to allow them to slide out of the canal when they're being birthed. So that's just something to be wary of. Newborn phase, and like in the hospital, he was essentially asleep the entire time. Newborns sleep quite a lot. They don't have a sleep schedule. They're incredibly tired, so they just sleep a shit ton, which I kind of miss. Honestly, I kind of miss. They say sleep when the baby sleeps. I tried to do that. It's difficult sometimes, but in the hospital, I was just trying to catch a nap whenever I could. Yeah, it was a lot of just laying in the bed, trying to catch naps, and bonding with the little one. Due to COVID, we only stayed in the hospital just under 48 hours, between 24 and 48 hours. Generally, I think you're supposed to stay a week after you deliver a baby, but due to COVID, they were trying to get people in and out quickly. They do get blood work done when they're born. It just, for their blood work, give me your heels. They just take the back of their heel and they poke it right there. No, whatever. They just poke the back of their heel. They will probably scream and cry for a little bit. That's where they draw blood. And then he got his vitamin K shot to help his blood clot, because newborns don't have the best clotting abilities. And another thing, he got the not petroleum jelly, some sort of jelly over his eyes to help prevent infection after birth. These are all optional, by the way. I opted to get them done because I felt that was best for his health. I'm not anti-vax. I'm very much pro evidence, like pro science. I will read the research from the scientists who are working on the vaccines. I very much choose to be educated from the proper sources. So that's just my opinion. You can choose not to get it done. It's totally up to you. But I chose to get it done for him. Anyways, so yeah, the blood work's mandatory. He had jaundice. He was a little bit jaundiced, so they took his blood about 4 hours after I gave birth to him or something like that, and then they had to wait 12 hours to do a repeat blood work, which I was incredibly upset about because I broke down crying. They're like, oh, he's jaundiced, you need to wait another 12 hours to get his blood work taken again, and I just broke down crying. I'm like, I want to go home. Like, I'd rather be in my bed. I'd rather be at home. I feel a lot more comfortable there. So, yeah, they got his blood work redone 12 hours later, and then we were set to go. Also, another thing, in the first few hours with your baby, they will have a pediatric nurse or pediatric doctor come by to check their flexibility, just kind of how they're doing, check up on them, and yeah, trying to think if there was anything else major postpartum that was interesting or difficult. He's just having a fun time here. Just try to let your family help you, take time for you. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.